Waiting for the signal. Okay. 1 John chapter number 2. 1 John chapter 2, we're going to finish out the chapter this evening. 1 John chapter number 2. And we'll be in verses 28 and 29. So 1 John chapter 2, verses 28 and 29. Now, if you remember, John is writing this letter to his church, and the little children that he refers to throughout the book is just the members of his church. So he's not actually writing to little children, although some of us act like little children. I'm pausing so that I remember to delete that from the... So that's who the little children are that's spoken of here in verse number 28. And it says, "And now, little children, abide in him, that when he shall appear we may have confidence and not be ashamed before him at his coming. If you know that he is righteous, you know everyone that doeth righteousness is born of him." And so we're looking for his appearing. He is going to come back, and we certainly do not want to be ashamed when he comes back. And you might ask yourself, well, what can I do that would make God ashamed of me? And what would the answer be? Everything I do makes God ashamed of me. Is that true? What would make God ashamed of us? If we know his word and we don't do it, that would make him that would make him ashamed of us. You know, we might feel shame at that. How about being worthwhile servants? Not just doing what he commands in the scriptures. Because there is a passage, and I didn't look this up and have it in my notes, it just came to me. But there's a passage that says if you follow all the commands of God, you're still considered an unworthy servant. Unprofitable servant. And so what would make us be a profitable servant if we're being obedient to his commands? What changes from profitable to unprofitable? What does that? If obeying the commands of God, if only obeying the commands of God makes us unprofitable, what would flip that and make us be profitable? Yep, obeying makes you an unprofitable servant. So what would cause that to change over to be a profitable servant?
Would it be like impacting others to obey them?
Okay. What do you need to impact others? It's really easy. I think you guys are thinking too hard. It's not super deep spiritual like we were this morning with that religious technical term that we were talking about. It's not anything like that. Any ideas? Any guesses? All right, let's look in the scriptures and we'll see what we need. All right, 1 Corinthians chapter 3. 1 Corinthians chapter number 3. Remember that, you know what? I left my phone on my desk. I was going to look up that word unprofitable and try to find that verse, unprofitable servant. So one of you guys with your phones and a Bible app, just look up the word unprofitable, and then it shouldn't be that long of a list. Should be like in the Gospels. No such thing? I'll look it up afterwards. Yeah, I'll look it up afterwards. No, it should be, I'm pretty confident it's unprofitable. Are you putting 2 T's in there?
I did not put 2 T's in.
Okay, I did find it. Luke 17.
Luke 17?
17:10.
Yes, that is it. Luke 17:10. So likewise ye, when you have done all those things which are commanded you, say, we are unprofitable servants. We have done that which was our duty to do. So what would cause us to turn from unprofitable servants to profitable? Again, we're following the commands, we're being obedient. But what would cause us to flip from unprofitable to profitable? Say it again? Nope. Because we're following the commands. Anybody else want to venture a guess? You're all going to be like, I knew that as soon as I tell you. All right, 1 Corinthians chapter 3. First Corinthians chapter number 3, and we'll look at verse 11 through 15. And so 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 11, for other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now if any man build upon this foundation gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire. And the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. If a man's work abide, which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. What is it that the Lord is looking at for you to have gold, silver, precious stones, or it would be wood, hay, stubble? Okay. So you guys at one time or another have come and helped me in the back. Okay, at one time or another. I put out the call, usually a text, and I'll say, hey, if you guys want to, you can come and I'll be at the building. You come. The way that you would get gold, silver, precious stones on that would be, hey, here's an opportunity for me to go to the church and to serve. You may not say those words, but that's your attitude. I get to go and serve. Right? That would get you gold, silver, precious stones. However, if your attitude is, well, he texted again, and I better just go just to get it over with, so the next time he texts, I don't have to go. That attitude would get you wood, hay, stubble. So what is the difference between gold, silver, precious stones and wood, hay, stubble? The work is, I'm going to church to help pastor work. What would gain you gold, silver, precious stones, or what would gain you wood, hay, stubble if you came and helped me work? Your motivation or your attitude, the reason why you're coming to do the work. All right? And this goes for anything. Why is it that you come to literature distribution? The Bible says for us to go and to teach all nations. We're to give the gospel out. But what's your motivation behind coming? Is it because you don't want to get a phone call from pastor saying, you didn't come on Saturday, where were you? Or do you come because you actually have the desire to get the gospel out? You want to be a servant. It all depends on our motive or our attitude. It's time to clean the church. We have a work day. And just come in and we've got a list of things that we need to do. What's your motivation for coming and working? Is it because you want to, or is it because you have to? Why do you come to church in the worship services? Is it because you want to, or is it because you have to? You see, all that depends on your attitude. So let's go back to Luke chapter 17 and verse 10 that we were talking about the unprofitable servant. What would cause us to be obedient to every one of God's commands and we're unprofitable? What would cause us to be profitable? It's the same answer. It's our attitude. It's our motive. I'm going to give my tithe because Pastor just got done preaching stewardship and he said I had to do it. Wrong motive. Wrong attitude. You're not a cheerful giver, which we looked at that verse, right? You're a have-to giver. Again, coming to church in Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 25, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is. We come to church. What's the reason why you come? So you don't get the phone call? By the way, have I ever called you? The only time that I would call or reach out to you is if you've missed several services in a row, and I'm going to try to find out why. Make sure you're okay. Make sure David hasn't fallen and he can't get up. Those kinds of things. I usually try not to call or text or reach out or anything and say, hey, we missed you. Why weren't you there? Kind of thing. Pastors have done that in the past, and so there's that stigma. So people show up because they feel like they have to because they don't want to get a phone call from the preacher. That's the wrong motive. That's the wrong motivation. That's the wrong attitude. You're unprofitable. Even though you keep all the 127 commands in the New Testament given to New Testament believers, you keep every single one of those, but your attitude is wrong, you're still unprofitable. You still would get wood, hay, stubble. And so what we need to strive to do so that we're not ashamed. By the way, if you have just your works get burnt up, again, look at the passage that we're in. In verse number 13, every man's work shall be made manifest. So all of your works that you've done, all of the commands that you've obeyed, all of the service that you've done in the church and for God in your life is going to be shown. It's going to be set on that foundation. And the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. So the Lord's going to put it to the test by lighting it on fire. Now, I've told you this before. I actually did this in a church down in Mexico. I had drop ceilings, and I was using dried out corn husks they used to make tamales. Well, they were dried out, and I lit those things on fire. There was a fireball. And the heat plume that came up off of that knocked the ceiling tile out of off the ceiling, and it actually fell down on the first-time visitor that came into that church that day. I was a guest preacher. I was preaching on this passage, first-time visitor. Most of the time, those visitors will say, I'm not going to church because, the roof will fall on my head. And this guy, it actually did. It literally did. But also, some of the things that I was illustrating, I had purchased some stones like you would get in Tombstone. Any gift shop that you go into, they always have this bin of rocks that you can get, colored rocks, and they've been polished. I was grabbing some of those and I was throwing them in the plate that I was about to light on fire. The interesting thing was all of those corn husks burned away to nothing, but all those rocks remained there and they were nice and shiny still. So I would like to get to heaven and have my works, or the majority of my works, remain gold, silver, precious stones. I would be ashamed if I had worked all of my life for God and I get up at the judgment seat of Christ, which is where this happens, and he lights my life on fire and it all burns up and makes a big fireball and a heat plume, so much so that the drop ceiling in heaven falls down on somebody's head. I would be ashamed. Again, that's what we're talking about in 1 John chapter 2. When he shall appear, we may have confidence and not be ashamed before him at his coming. And so we ought to strive in our Christian lives to not be ashamed when it comes time for the judgment seat of Christ. And so one of the main things that helps us is our attitude, is our motive. My wife and I, we'll tease back and forth big time. She'll say, hey, why don't you go to the store with me? And I'll say, oh, okay, I have to go to the store with you. And then she'll jab back at me and say, no, you get to go to the store with me. You see the attitude difference? Not I have to go to church, but I get to go to church. Not I have to tithe, but I get to tithe. Not I have to do literature distribution, but I get to do literature distribution. Not that I have to work in the church, but I get to. You see the attitude difference? That's the difference between unprofitable and profitable. That's the difference between gold, silver, precious stones, and wood, hay, stubble, is our motive. And like I said, I'd sure hate to have all of my works burned up, and then that would cause me to have shame before Jesus Christ. Verse number 14, if any man's work abide, which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. We talk about crowns. The scriptures talk about crowns. We'll receive crowns. If any man's work should be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as by fire. We'll get to be in heaven, but we'll have nothing to lay down at the feet of Jesus Christ. That will cause us shame in heaven. All right, what else? How about his appearing? What would help us to think about his appearing? Look with me in Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24 and verse 43. Matthew 24 and verse 43. Matthew 24, verse 43. Does anybody know when Jesus is coming back? Does anybody? I was almost going to announce that I know a day, or I have a time frame for you. Do you guys remember when the astronomers were saying that asteroid was going to hit Earth in 2035? 7 years from now. Not 35, 32. You guys remember that? Well, that's 7 years. They were kept up in the chances, the probability that this asteroid was going to strike Earth. Well, in the book of Revelation, we're told about an asteroid, a heavenly body that's going to strike Earth, called Wormwood. And so I'm sitting here doing the math, and I'm like, the rapture is going to happen this year. Because it's during the rapture in that 7-year period, and it's in the great tribulation, and so it's the last 3.5 years. And so I was doing the math, and I was like, that's this year. The rapture is going to happen. And then, a week after that, the same astronomer said, well, the chances now are zero for that asteroid to hit planet Earth. So there's no chance that it's going to hit. So we can't even tell by heavenly bodies that are going to be coming, asteroids or comets that are coming to strike the Earth, and we can say, ooh, look, that could be wormwood right there. Right? No man knows. No man knows when he's going to come. Matthew 24 and verse 43, but know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched. He would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. And if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming. How long has it been since the Lord ascended into heaven? Going up on 2,000 years? That's kind of a long time, isn't it? Well, the Lord's going to delay his coming. Verse 49, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken. The Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So what is this passage telling us? How we cannot be ashamed. We ought to be looking for his coming. And don't get slack in your looking. Don't get slack in your service. Don't get slack with your attitude. Don't get slack with your motive. We need to keep up, keep on keeping on. Be not weary in well-doing. We need to continue to do those things because we don't know when the Lord is going to come back. He may come back any minute. And he could. And he'll find you sitting in the church. Now, I can't see your heart. I can't see your attitude. But if your attitude is right, the reason why you're here, if it's right, then verse number 46 is you. Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. However, if your attitude is not right, then you would be, verse number 49. Verse 48, 49, and 50. That'll be you if you've changed your attitude. If the reason why you're here is wrong and the Lord comes. We don't want to be ashamed at his coming. All right, and the last place we're going to look is the next chapter, Matthew 25. And verse 13. And I feel like I just preached on this during Stewardship Month, so I'm going to run through it quickly. We talked about this before, so I'm not going to go in depth in the explanation unless you need it. But Matthew 25 and verse number 13. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. We could probably just stop there and spend all of our time on that verse. We need to watch. You know not the day or the hour. Verse 14, for the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. Unto one he gave 5 talents, another 2, another 1. To every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. Then he that had received 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2, he also gained other 2. But he that had received 1 went and digged in the earth, and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with him. And so He that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Does it sound like that servant his Lord was ashamed of him? Or we'll just use the word proud of him? Which one do you think? No, proud. He was proud of him because he had gained other 5 talents. He said, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Verse 22, he also that received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee a ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord, of thy Lord. And again, would the Lord be ashamed of this guy or proud of this guy? He would be proud of him. All right? Then we come down to verse 24. Then he which received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art a hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast that is thine. And his Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reaped where I sowed not, and gathered where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received mine own with usury. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. For every one that hath shall be given, he shall have abundance, but from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness, there should be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Not sure about you, but I don't think I want to have the Lord put me in a place where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. And I've mentioned this before. These are servants, so these 3 are saved men. But there's going to be a place, and it's usually going to be at the judgment seat of Christ. There's going to be weeping, gnashing of teeth. It's going to be bad. Why didn't I do more? As a matter of fact, I believe there's a hymn, I could have done more. All of these passages that we looked at are warnings for us as Christians that we need to be watching for the coming of the Lord. That we need to be not weary in well-doing. We need to continue on. We need to do what the Scriptures say, but with the right attitude and the right motive. Not I have to do these things, but I get to do these things. So that when he shall appear, we will not be ashamed. Go back again to 1 John chapter 2 and we'll be done. We'll look at these 2 verses again. 1 John chapter 2, verses 28 and 29. And now, little children, abide in him, that when he shall appear, we may have confidence and not be ashamed before him at his coming. If you know that he is righteous, you know everyone that doeth righteousness is born of him. Is Christ holy? Does it bother you when you listen to other people refer to him in a derogatory manner? You know, John was doing it kind of jokingly in my house today, and I said, you need to stop because I don't want my house being burned down by lightning. He was kind of mocking the world, how the world looks at Jesus Christ. What is your view of him? That's what this verse is talking about. Do you know he is righteous? Do you know he's Almighty God? And we need to have the right view of Jesus Christ. I would be very afraid if I was in Hollywood and I casted a bald black lesbian woman to play Jesus Christ. I would be afraid. There's no fear before their eyes. Which, by the way, they did. There's going to be a movie coming out. It's a remake of an older movie, Jesus Christ Superstar. It is a vile, wicked movie. I don't care what area you look at it. And they casted the bald black lesbian woman to play Jesus Christ in that movie. And it angers me, and if it angers me, I wonder how much it angers God that they would view him in such a way that he would be unrighteous. So we need to be careful with our view of who Jesus Christ is. And it says, if you know that he is righteous, that's Jesus, you know everyone that doeth righteousness is born of him. If that angers you too, then you can know that you're part of the Lord and not the world. I saw another thing. It was a group of religious organizations. They got together and made a crucifix, and it was a woman on there that was hanging on the cross. No, it was a trans. It had been a man that identified as a woman hanging on the cross, trying to be Jesus Christ. That ought to get the hairs on the back of your head standing up, and it ought to anger you. Boy, I was spitting. I was making all kinds of noises when I saw that, and of course my wife is like, "What's going on?" And I showed her the picture, and she started spitting. These people are dumb. Do you remember an old actor, Michael? Oh, his name just left me. Is it Michael Landon? Is he the one that played the angel on an old TV show? Is that his name, Michael Landon? Am I thinking of the right guy? Yeah. Do you know, because of that role, many Christian pastors believe that's why Michael Landon died at the age that he died, was because he was blaspheming the God of heaven in that role. Playing some kind of long-haired hippie angel, and God didn't like it. And so many believe that was why he died at such a young age, that he was playing that role. It ought to frighten people to disrespect the Lord Jesus Christ. But like I said, in the scriptures say there is no fear before their eyes. As Christians, there ought to be fear before our eyes, and realize that Jesus Christ is righteous. And let's not be ashamed at his appearing. All right, question.